G'day everyone. It's a nice sunny Thursday afternoon and my new radiator's come in the post. It's an ADRAD brand, screw-on fittings for the transmission oil cooler. That's a very important point when you're ordering a radiator for one of these things, because there was push on and screw on, so make sure you don't screw it up. No pun intended. This radiator is a brass core. Well, it does look brass when you see it in the sun. It's a brass core double row ADRAD brand. If I can get the bloody logo to show up. There you go, ADRAD. ADRAD Australia. Do yourself a favour and steer clear of any full alloy core radiators. That is a radiator that's made of alloy with aluminium welded tanks. Alloy welded tanks. They are basically a piece of shit, even the expensive ones. So nothing wrong with a plastic tank radiator. This one's about 15 years old, which is original to the car. And the problem is that the tank on this side's cracked. This is typically where they go. It's got a crack that sort of starts there. Bloody fly. Bit hard to see, but anyway, it's got the crack starts there. And if I can get this thing to focus, please, maybe push it right in. It's focusing on everything else. And this camera's not perfect, it's not too bad, but if it will focus. Bloody pile. Right now. So the crack starts at about there, goes up and around that top inlet for the radiator. That's, if it was vertical flow, that you'd call it the top tank. Right, getting one of these out's not too hard. You pull off the power sear reservoir, piss off the charcoal canister because it's in the way. It's just got a little spring bracket thing. Unbolt your fan. There are 5 bolts, including the bracket for the power steering. And the brackets, the clips that hold it in, where the bloody hell did it go? There it is. This is one of them. This is what holds the radiator into the car. Sits about, you can get the bloody lens cap to piss off. Just sits in there. Now I'll show you how to take it out. If you can't be bothered reading the book and you've never done it before. Sort of push it in. Don't squeeze it too hard. And push it in. The other side was bloody wrong angle. There you go. The other side actually just came straight out. So this side looks like it's a little bit. It's not coming out because this tank's rooted. It's so it's kind of bent that in a little bit. But you push them in, and I'm gonna have to put the camera down because I'm not talented. Force that radiator down a bit. It's being a bitch because this is bent a little bit. Right, if you can't get it out, and you're not using the radiator again, all I did, piss that out of the way, was sort of push in this bit with the, how good this is showing up. I just sort of push the clip down and in. So the other side, what I normally use is some right angle circlip pliers, and they'll sort of just push on. They'll just sort of push on this bit only. So you push them down and in. Don't just push them in, like don't squeeze the crap out of them. Push them down and in. And if the tank on the radiator is seriously rooted like this one is, it's probably going to have bent that retaining bracket slightly. So the only thing left to do is pull off these fittings. Be careful, don't damage anything. They are screw-on transmission oil cooler fittings. Now at this point, if you have some money spare, or you have access to a really top-notch second-hand transmission oil cooler, be a good idea to bypass this shit. Yeah, so if you want, you can just all I did from memory was slide back the fittings. You get enough, you know, tube to clamp on. So if you really want to, you can piss off the flare nuts altogether, and yeah, just carefully cut through the end of it. But I wouldn't bother. I'd just leave the flare nuts on it in case you're ever going to sell the car and you want to keep your cooler. Yeah, I'd just slide them back. You do get enough engagement to put a hose clamp and stuff on. If you are going to bypass the transmission oil cooler that comes with the radiator, just leave these caps on it. They just screw on. They got like a thread. If you can see that, probably not. They got a thread on there and they just screw on. So it'll just keep it clean in there in case you ever do want to keep your cooler and, you know, sell the car or whatever. You don't want the next greedy bastard that only wants to give you whatever money for the car. You don't want to give them the cooler. So this is part one. I'll undo the cooler lines and yeah. Anyone that's ever done a radiator on a Commodore or any other car that uses these god awful aluminium flares or flare fittings will know that sometimes, okay, see if we can get a close up of that. This stupid thing will focus. Please focus. Hello? Okay, that's what it should look like. It's a bit damaged, it's not perfect, but that's roughly what the thread should look like. Now this one came off easy. This is the bottom nut and this radiator's inbuilt transmission oil cooler. Right, let's go to the top one. For some reason they always seem to... I bruised the nut with the... I bruised that with the shifter, but that's not why it happened. They'll always do that. They bind and all the thread will get left behind in the nut, in the flare nut on the pipe. This is an aluminium fitting, right? The one on the new radiator is not. If you unscrew that, brass. Now, you're in a spot of bother if this happens, because who cares about the old radiator, it's fucked anyway. But you have to screw the new radiator's transmission oil cooler flare fittings onto the onto these lines here. Right. Now this nut, see, the thread's not bad, right? It looks still like it's dodgy because it's got aluminium dust in it. You can see it's pretty clean, it's not bad. Now, how did I clean all the thread out of there? Because everything that's missing off that radiator ended up in there, and it was physically welded, like cold welded to the thread of that nut, right? And I'm sure it's because corrosion, you know, water gets into it, it corrodes it out, and, you know, because it's now an interference fit, when you go to undo it, all the thread gets left behind because aluminium's soft, the steel's hard. So this is what I did. LPG systems are perfect. If you've scrapped any, you'll have these lying around. This has been a double-ended, you know, it's had a flare fitting on one end, and I've cut that off, of course, and it's had a, you know, just a thread, just a BSP thread on the other end. I'm not sure what size it is, but I'd like to get a good close-up of this because this is what I did to clean out the thread. I got out an angle grinder. Don't want to get too close to the lens. I got out the angle grinder and I chopped 4 grooves in this old fitting. And all I did was I cut out the thread. I cut the thread down on the bit that I don't want to cut. So you can see where it's going, right? There's a fly on my hand. It's really pissing me off. If I should have to suffer, so should everyone watching the video. So you can see, if the damn thing will focus, that's what it does, right? Maybe even zoom in. Zoom in and hold the friggin' camera still. So there you go. Someone's turned up. That's what this does, okay? So if you're in a spot of bother, that's what you do. Get out your angle grinder and the thin cutting disc. That is the one that's CD thickness. Okay, well, this is finally done. Well, almost. Which is good because I was getting very, very snaky with it. and very, very close to flipping the bloody lid. So if you're in a pinch and the stupid aluminium dog rocket thread on the original radiator strips out and ends up in the flare nut, this fucking thing will focus. There we go. Make yourself one of these. You can see how it works. See, it just cuts a thread. Bloody thing worked wonders. Less than 5 minutes. So see how I've cut it. Look, I'm sure you can buy a proper tool. I'm not paying 20 bucks for it, or 30 bucks, or 40 bucks, or 50 or whatever. And I don't have time anyway. Had to be done. Tool took less than 15 minutes to make with the angle grinder. In fact, I reckon it was probably more like about 10 minutes. Got me out of trouble. Tips concerning fitting radiators. This is an absolutely must, and do not skip and don't be impatient. When you're fitting a different radiator to your car, even if it says it bolts straight in, assume it doesn't, and make damn sure that that fan shroud clears the core of the radiator. I repeat, in case you weren't listening, make sure that this fan shroud clears the radiator's core, because this radiator isn't exactly identical to what came out. What came out was an aluminium core, single row tube 26mm. This core is obviously not 26mm because the clearance, I threw this one on the ground and it's bent, so that's why it looks dodgy. The clearance between here and the core is not the same as the new radiator. Now, so that is actually less clearance on the new radiator. Same brand, but it's a different radiator. They list it as a Statesman radiator, so God knows where but it's a copper core two tube or twin tube. It's $125 plus whatever for postage, or I don't remember. I think it worked out to be $125.90. The seller's name, I can't remember, but I'll post in the description. But again, I use spacers to space the fan shroud from the radiator. That's what you can see there. And I also hit the fan shroud with the angle grinder. You can see the bits of plastic slag there where I've hit it with the this thing in focus, where I've hit it with the angle grinder. Now don't skimp it, and make sure you do it, because if you don't, it'll hit the core. And the way I checked it was I reached in and I felt around the edge, the lip, around the whole lot, make sure it cleared. So if you don't do it, the fan shroud will rub a hole through the radiator's core. It'll ruin the radiator, and it'll waste all the money you spent and the time you spent putting it together. So that's just a tip. Unless you're going to go and get exactly what came out of the car. Look, this is the price difference, $125.90 for this brand new copper core radiator, or one of these pieces of shit from Repco for 220 bucks. That was 5 years ago. Like I said, they do eventually pack up, if it'll focus. They don't really like focusing on it. There you go. So there you go. That's the actual crack in it. It's cracked all the way up there. It's even changed the shape of that tank. So like I said, be very careful. Don't tag the core of the radiator on any parts of the car while you're putting it together. Now, make sure the lines are connected to this evap system, to this activated charcoal canister. And make sure you haven't disturbed any of the lines. See, there's a line clip that's sad, not a very good clip. So if you push that line clip in, it'll sit there. Just a couple of tips. And make sure the very last thing you fit are these damn things. They came out the way they went. They go in the way they came out. I'm not going to demonstrate it, because like I said, I've had enough of this. So thanks for watching.